We're back out in our field. We wanted to check on how our corn is growing, and we brought some of our tools with, like Red Wing boots.
And some spray paint to spray the station vehicle.
The what?
Well, Dean's car.
Okay. And wait till I introduce you to our expert, Brian Weller. All right, when you talk about corn plant growth, I have the expert with me, Brian Weller with Dairyland Seed. Okay, Brian, how big is my corn plant now?
Bridget, when we look at this corn plant, you see I have the the tape measure right there. I look at it on a growth stage. Some folks look at it from how tall is the corn. I prefer to look at it from a growth stage. So when we look here, we have, this is what we would call V1, that's the first leaf, then V2, then V3, V4, and then V5. So when I say that, I'm looking at the collar. There's actually a ligule right there where Bridget's pointing out. That's called a ligule, I call it a collar. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're at V5. We see this leaf right here at V6, it's not quite out yet, but just kind of one of those things. Once we hit V5, V6, that's when a lot of things start to happen in a corn plant. From a herbicide standpoint, some herbicides say, hey, once we hit this stage at V5 to V6, we want to maybe potentially use a different rate, or maybe we can start increasing the rate at that point. Depends upon a certain product. The other thing that I'm looking at it from when we hit that V5 to V6 growth stage, the growing point is just barely starting to come out of the ground. It's probably right at the soil surface or potentially an inch off the soil surface. That's where we're at in that growth stage. The other important thing that happens at that V5 to V6 growth stage is, imagine that this pen is a cob of corn. What that plant is trying to do is it's trying to determine the number of rows around that cob is going to be. The thing that's important about that is, as we can add more rows around that cob, that is going to equate to 13% more yield just by adding 2 more rows around.
So hold on, Brian. When you are saying that we're talking about the cob already developing, would there be a cob in this plant somewhere at this point?
Yes, there actually is, and if you can split that plant, you can actually find it if you have good enough eyes.
All right, we have a plant that's split. Where would it be?
So when you look at this and you start looking where the crown is at and then you bring it up, there's a spot right here where you can see where the actual physical cob is at. A lot of times when it's that size or this stage, you have to use a magnifying glass or take a photo with your phone and then expand it, and you should be able to see it.
So you said that the cob is determining how many rows around of kernels,
yep,
which always end in an even number.
Thank you, I was going to say that.
But now, is there anything we can do to influence it, the length of the cob and the number of kernels in that length? Could we change up our nitrogen or get more heat units?
So as far as, Bridget, maybe you control the heat units, I don't. But with that being said, if Mother Nature's kind enough with us and we get a few more GDUs, potentially, yes, we can lengthen that cob out a little bit more. But once we hit V5 to V6, that number of rows around it's done. That's when we figure that. From about V6 to V15, V18, and that's almost, V18 is pre-tassel. That's when the corn plant is saying, what is the maximum length of kernels that I can have?
So we've had a lot of wind, and because of that, you'll notice that there is soil down into the leaves. Brian, is that going to harm this plant?
Odds are it probably will not. What we may see out of that is we may see a little bit of a rapid growth syndrome or some yellowing of some leaves. So what transpires is, once you start getting soil in the leaf surface or up in the whorl, the plant looks at that and kind of says, hey, that's kind of something funny. That's kind of
It's weird. It's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly. Thank you. So what the plant does is you'll see where the actual leaves will constrict, and they'll use the phrase buggy whipping. So when you look at that plant, it may start to yellow up a little bit, and it'll start to kind of crook a little bit, and the plant will actually look like a buggy whip. So once we get some rain, it may push some of that soil out of the collars, out of the leaf zone, and the plant may grow through that. Then you may see some yellow leaves. because the plant was constricted, you may see had some rapid growth syndrome. You may see that where you'll see a yellow leaf or a yellow flash from that.
So we know corn can grow fast and furiously. How much can it grow in 24 hours? Let's go look.